let's talk about all the horror I read for my advent calendar in October. If you haven't seen a couple of my previous videos, I made myself an advent calendar through October to try and force myself to read more horror, as well as to watch some horror movies. I just really wanted to celebrate the genre that is horror in this spooky season. I'm a lover of horror movies. I have seen probably thousands of horror movies at this point. It is one of my favorite go-to genres, but for some reason I don't pick up a lot of horror books. Originally I was going to vlog the experience, but I have realized that I suck at daily vlogging. I'm just trash at it. That first one had half an hour of footage once it was all edited. I was going to be lucky if I came up with 5 minutes of edited footage for any of the weeks after. So it just kind of felt like a mess. I ended up just scrapping the whole idea. I do still have all that footage, so maybe I will sprinkle in some throughout this video. I don't really know. I think what I've decided to do for this video, to do for this wrap up, is I'm going to sit here and kind of introduce the clips to you and then splice them in to this video, because as I'm trying to wrap things up, I'm realizing like I've said all this before and I hate wasting footage, and I feel like this will work. So this is part wrap up, part vlog, hopefully at least somewhat entertaining. The first book I finished in my advent calendar was The Forgotten Island by David Sodergren. I ended up absolutely adoring this. I gave it 4 to 5 stars. This is a tourist massacre sort of situation about a group of people who end up going to this full moon party in Thailand. This revolves around our main character, whose name I don't remember because of course I don't. She has decided to kind of tag along on her sister's vacation with her sister's boyfriend. It's supposed to be like just a fun but also romantic vacation for them. She thinks this entire vacation is going to be extremely awkward, obviously being the third wheel out, but then she meets this guy Ricky, they really click, and she decides to drag him along on all of their escapades together. Well, they end up drinking a little bit too much at this party and wind up on a boat in the middle of frickin' nowhere. The boat has no motor, they just got real drunk, got on this boat, it floated away, and now they've ended up on this island. I started The Forgotten Island last night. I got 30% of the way into it and I am loving it. It is so good so far. Just the prologue alone was giving me all like creepy vibes, claustrophobia in a cave situation. It's exactly what I wanted in a horror, and I'm really excited about it. So far in the first 30%, we're just getting to know the cast of characters that we're going to be with throughout this book. But so far I'm just loving so much of this. We do get to see that Anna has some like inner demons that she's dealing with. She once tried to commit suicide. They talk about that a bit, and they talk about how she's seeing visions and that's what drove her to suicide. So I'm really interested. I really connect with Anna as a character who's someone just generally who doesn't like other people. I'm vibing with her. I feel like in these types of stories, these tourist massacre stories, there are always these hippy-dippy characters. And we definitely get that here. You always get 2 types of characters, I feel like, in these stories. The hippie one with nature type characters, and then the crazy dumbass party characters. And we're getting a little bit of both here. This is just exactly what I was needing and looking for. Every single character in this pretty much you hate. They're all awful people in one way or another, but this book has such a good sense of humor about it. It made me laugh out loud several times in ways I wasn't expecting. There are definitely some drawbacks. I feel like this wasn't effective in the horror elements as much. Like, this deals a lot with spiders and stuff, and I hate spiders and any sort of like insects and stuff, so I feel like this really should have given me the creeps, and it didn't as much as I feel like it could have. And I think that's because it's super fast paced. Like, it doesn't really stick around in any gory scene for too long. I think too, the fact that you hate all of these characters so much, it almost makes it like this good karmic feeling when you get to watch them be brutally killed, so it's a fun time. So like, this really was just an enjoyable read overall. The main character and her sister in this book are Scottish, and their sense of humor is just so like great. I deeply enjoyed their friendship, even though it was kind of complicated. Like, they were kind of reconciling after some difficult things in their past. I just really enjoyed their characters overall, and I feel like they weren't the type of characters I see very often, which I appreciated. I think the author also managed to avoid some of the pitfalls that exist in this subgenre, which is that sometimes these books can come off as very, very racist, and I feel like he actually managed to avoid all of the stereotypes that can sometimes go with this. Like, if you've ever seen The Green Inferno by Eli Roth, like, you know, sometimes they can just come across as like, really, you're just painting this entire tribe of individuals as archaic lunatics. But because this island is so detached from the rest of the world, I feel like they mostly avoid that. The first movie I watched during October was Poltergeist. I had never seen this, and boy was it not what I was expecting. This is about a family who moves into a house that may or may not be haunted. So the only two scenes I've ever known from that horror movie is the scene where like the little girl puts her hands up on the TV. That's like the iconic image, I feel like, from that. Also the scene where the little girl goes like, "They're here." That's the only other scene I ever really knew. And so I was really expecting like a very kind of classic haunting movie. And that is not what I got. This movie gives me more Jumanji vibes than horror movie vibes, which was very much a surprise. It was also way too long. There's definitely like a good half hour that could have been cut from that movie, but I will say, like, I love the last, I don't know, 20 minutes where shit goes crazy and it's really balls to the wall. I think that's super fun. There's also just like, it's just so different from any horror movie I've seen, because I also love that the parents automatically believe everything that's going on, so we don't have to go through that like half an hour of the kids trying to convince their parents that this is really happening. So that was nice. Overall, I'd give it like a 3. I feel like if I'd seen that movie as a kid, I'd probably love it. Like, I probably would have really hardcore nostalgia vibes for it. But seeing it at 30, it was okay. It was decent. The second thing I finished was the comic series Winnebago Graveyard. This was a one-off series, so there was like 4 or 5 issues and that was it. Like, that was the complete story. This was about a group of vacationers. It's like a family, they're on vacation, they show up in this town, they get stranded, and turns out there are some dark things going on in this town. I didn't like this. I gave this a 1.5 stars. I just felt like this was very stereotypical. You will have seen this before. This is not done that well. This was very, very rushed, which of course they only had 4 issues, but it just didn't go any deeper, and all of the characters didn't really feel like actual people or actual characters even. It was just very surface level and not that interesting. The next movie I watched was Escape Room. This was about a group of strangers who get these mysterious invitations to this escape room. They all show up. They expect to just be participating in this for fun. I believe there's some sort of cash prize at the end. Lo and behold, the escape room starts killing them one by one, and they realize the situation is a lot more serious than they previously thought. So we finished Escape Room, and it was fine. It was alright. It gave me a lot of Saw vibes, which I wasn't really expecting. I definitely would compare it more to Saw than anything else. I do like the 2 main characters, and I think it's interesting the way they're trying to set it up as a series. I'd probably watch another one, but I wasn't like blown away by how great it was. It's just kind of easy and fun, I guess. Saw, but for tweens. I give it like a 3.5 probably. The kills and situations were a lot more brutal than I was expecting. You know, there is this mysterious figure that's forcing them to play this deadly game, but it's not as intense and as grotesque as the Saw movies are. The next book I finished was The Summer Is Ended and We Are Not Yet Saved by Joey Comeau. This was pretty short. It was about a boy who ends up going to this Bible camp over the summer so that his mom can take this job offer that she really wants. She doesn't have a babysitter, and so he has to be somewhere else for the summer. I'm only like a 1/5 of the way through it, but so far I'm really enjoying it. The author did such a good job of really establishing this mom and son dynamic, and I really, really like the mom. She's like this single mother who's just trying to do her best, but she's also a little bit of a mess. She loves horror movies, and she's into doing special effects makeup for horror movies, and I just really like their dynamic. And the kid, he's one of those kids who's like a little bit older than his years because he has to keep it together for his mom. I don't know. It's just super cute. I really liked this at first, but I feel like it didn't go quite where I was expecting, and like, not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but I think the thing I've realized is the one place I want a happy ending is in horror movies or horror books. Only because if you don't have a happy ending, the book just kind of goes along the same line the whole time. Like, it's like, here's some people getting killed, here's some more people getting killed, and then these people get killed as well. Like, nothing, there's no alteration, it's just... And, you know, sometimes if you can come up with some really interesting kills, then at least there's some sort of fun factor there. But I just kind of feel like the ending to this was really anticlimactic, and I didn't love that. And the thing that I loved the most, the thing that intrigued me the most about this book, was the main character's relationship with his mother, because, like, they had such an interesting dynamic, because she wasn't, like, your ordinary mom. She was very into horror makeup effects, and, like, she very much, like, built this adventurous imagination world for her child to live in that all revolved around her love of horror, and I just really liked that dynamic. So then splitting them up and sending her away to Toronto and sending him away to this Bible camp, like, kind of took away the one thing I liked. And you still got to see that because she was writing him letters, which were really fun, but it just made me wish that they were together more. So I would definitely read from this author again, but I definitely didn't like this book as much as I wanted to. I would still give it, though, like a 3 out of 5 because it was still fun. It's just I wished that certain things were expanded on, and I don't know. It was fine. The next movie I watched was The Cleansing Hour. I love an exorcist movie. I will watch any sort of exorcism movie you throw at me, despite the fact that I know they are going to disappoint me. Nothing will hold up to the original Exorcist. It's pretty much the gold standard. But for what this was, I really enjoyed it. It took a different approach to things, and I appreciate that. I said in my blog, this to me felt like your average Supernatural episode, but with better acting. Not to say that Jared Padalecki and Jensen Ackles aren't good actors, but, like, after you've seen 300 episodes, their shtick is just kind of their shtick, you know? I love Kyle Gallner. I've loved him ever since Veronica Mars, and he is what made this movie work for me. This movie, I have not told you what it's about. This movie is about a Chris Angel type of character. Him and Kyle Gallner's character, who is the producer, they have this show together where they exorcise demons from people who are possessed. But of course, it's all fake until the day that it isn't. The producer's girlfriend ends up having to fill in for an actress who doesn't show up that day. She ends up getting possessed, and they end up having to bare themselves and tell all in order to get this demon to let her go. There were things that worked about this and things that didn't. I thought the kind of meta poking fun at the situation and the industry was really fun. I thought that Kyle Gallner's acting, like I mentioned, was really great. I think that he really threw his all into this, and it just made the movie all the better, more enjoyable. I thought that them trying to shove in this backstory for the Chris Angel type character didn't really work for me. I just felt like it was super unnecessary, and it didn't add the gravity I felt like it was trying to. But I did like the kind of research aspect that they were doing about the demon themselves. I feel like that part was really interesting, as they try and narrow down which demon it is that's possessing her and how to defeat it. Overall, I gave this movie 3.5 stars. The next book is The Con Season by Adam Cezar. This is about a horror convention. We follow our main character, who is a pretty famous Scream Queen has-been, who gets invited to be the title player at this horror convention. It's being run by these two nutbags who have beat the shit out of a horror director and forced him to come and do all the behind-the-scenes work directing their movie. There's a bunch of other horror movie B-list actors who are invited to this as well, and we get to watch as things unfold. They get paid to go to this horror convention, and they think they're just gonna be the stars of this horror convention, that they show up, act a little bit, do their part, and go home. Just like any other horror convention. Little do they know that that is not what this is, and that their lives may be in danger. Now, I'm 70% of the way in, and they just had, like, the first kill. Like, the first starlet just died at the horror convention. It seems weird that there's now only 30% left, but I will say, like, I didn't even really necessarily notice because there has been enough going on, because there have been some other deaths or some other beatings leading up to this, so I'm okay with this. I hope that the next 30% is really exciting. Overall, I am enjoying it. Not as much as I enjoyed The Forgotten Island, though. Done. Oh, I finished The Con Season by Cezar, and like, first of all, I'm definitely going to be reading more things from that author because I really ended up enjoying it. I gave it 4 stars. Like, it certainly wasn't perfect, but it was just so much fun. I kind of like the way that it poked at the people who love horror, because obviously Cezar is someone who does love horror, but like, it still poked at the idea of like, are we a little bit twisted for these things we like? I really like the ending. It kind of has an open ending, but in a way I really enjoy. You know, this book wasn't super deep. It wasn't super well explored, but I just like enjoyed it for what it was. I think if you're looking for something quick and fun, a little bit graphic, but nothing too bad, like, I just think this is a really easy read in the horror genre. It might not like scratch your itch for something intense if that's what you're looking for, but I don't know, I just think like different things for different moods, and this was a good one. The next movie I chose was The Empty Man, which was actually an adaptation of a comic book series that I read a while back. I enjoyed the comic book series enough, but I didn't love it, and I liked this adaptation even less. I'm not even sure how to explain what this is about, but at the beginning of the movie, the main character has a friend's daughter go missing, and he decides to try and figure out where she went and what's happening. It has something to do with this thing called the Empty Man, which is a phenomenon of blowing into a bottle on a bridge or something. Is it a cult? Is it a ghost? That's for you to find out. The Empty Man I gave 2 stars. I read this comic book series, and therefore I was kind of looking forward to seeing the movie adaptation, but holy balls was this boring. This is over 2 hours long, which I gotta say, very, very few horror movies deserve to be over 2 hours long, and this one definitely did not. I could have easily cut 40 minutes from this movie. It was just a whole lot of nothing until the last like 20 minutes, and considering I already knew where this was going because I read the comic book series, I just didn't love it. I really don't have a lot to say about it. I just think there are so many better horror movies out there. I've seen some people who like this, and that's cool. Like, I don't know. But me and my boyfriend were very, very bored by it. Next are these horror comics called Ice Cream Man. These are little vignette horror stories that revolve around this ice cream man in this small suburban town. I read the first volume, and I'm definitely not going to continue on with it. I didn't realize really what it was going to be like. Every issue is very much a standalone thing, and I didn't realize that. Like, I just don't, that's not the type of story I like. I don't like anthologies. I like things that are connected with a bigger overall story, and yeah, this was just about this town, and it had these 4 different stories that all took like a horror turn. It actually really reminded me of Stephen King in a way. Basically like good and evil in this suburban small town. It even had like this dark cowboy adversary. But yeah, that's just not really something that I enjoy, so I'm not going to continue on with that one. I did look just to see if that's what continues on throughout all the volumes, and it is. It's always just like little standalone stories. The next movie is called Triggered. This is about a group of friends who go camping in the woods only to wake up and discover that they have bombs attached to their chests. This is revenge from somebody they may or may not have wronged back in high school, but really that part doesn't matter so much because it's mostly about the fact that they have to kill each other to get their time. Now there are timers on their chests that are counting down, and they have to kill one another to get each other's time because the person with the most amount of time will be the last one standing. I loved this. My boyfriend absolutely hated it. He says he can no longer trust my taste in movies, which, fair. This was so cheesy. This really gave off the vibe of like a group of college kids who got together and decided to write a script and then film it. Like, it was just so much fun that I couldn't help but love it. But like, yeah, it's bad. Like, it is not good, but I enjoyed the shit out of it. Like, there were so many one-liners that were just awful. Like, the one I remember in particular is like, somebody, I don't know, somebody got stabbed or something, and then the other character was like, he's crashing harder than Bitcoin. And like, every line was like that. I don't know, I had great fun. The next is a horror web series called Not Drunk Enough. This series follows a group of people who are stuck in this corporate building where some crazy mad experiments have been happening. I read the first volume through Comixology. Pacing is really weird. I think because this was a webcomic before. I think it's a webcomic, I'm not totally positive. Most comic series come out by issue, whereas webcomics, I believe, come out more just like a couple pages at a time or a couple panels at a time. And so yeah, the pacing just feels really weird because of that. And I'm also just somewhat confused at certain parts. I don't know. But I do enjoy the characters enough. I'm enjoying the weird monsters. Like, it's definitely fun and easy, and I believe that it's only 2 volumes long, so I'm gonna stick with it and finish it. I finished volume 2 of that, which is the only other volume that's available. I did not realize that it is not totally finished. So, will I ever finish the series? I don't know, because book 3 isn't out yet. Finishing volume 2, so far I'm giving this series 3 stars. It's just a little bit too confusing for my liking, but I do enjoy it enough. Like, if the 3rd book comes out and I actually see it, I'd probably pick it up in Comixology and read it. But it's definitely not something I would like out and out recommend. I just do find it a little too scattered. The next movie was called Don't Look Now, which is a much older movie starring Donald Sutherland, about a wedded couple whose daughter dies in a very unfortunate circumstance on their property, and they both deal with their grief in different ways. The wife tends to chase these different paranormal theories as well as connections to her dead daughter, while the husband tries to ignore everything that's going on, including some things he sees around town that he can't quite explain. And then the other thing I watched was Don't Look Now, which is like from 1973, so it's hella old. Seeing Donald Sutherland with this hair he has was a trip. I believe that this is like an Italian giallo movie, so it's very, very different from your American horror movies. This, I wouldn't even necessarily say was horror. It has a lot to do with grief, and then the ending happens, and it's weird, and I did not love this. I love the way it's shot. I love the feel of the movie. The main actress is like gorgeous, and I just kept staring at her hair and her clothes and the way she like carries herself, and I was like, yes, women. But other than that, the movie was pretty boring. I gave it 2.5 stars. It's really sad because I've been looking forward to watching this movie for so long. For some reason, you know, sometimes you just get hung up on certain movies that you feel like if you watch them, you're going to love them. I thought I was going to love this one, and I didn't. The next book I have to talk about is Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by LaRocca. This is obviously like the book du jour. I feel like everyone's talking about this. This is about 2 women who meet online. One is trying to sell an apple peeler, and the other one's trying to buy it. They strike up conversation and a weird sort of relationship that escalates quickly. I like so much of this, but I feel like it needed more work. I think a lot of this hit right. The way that the one character feels like they owe the other character, the way that the one character is so manipulative and uses all these things to her advantage. I feel like so much of this, so much of the interactions felt so authentic to the type of characters that Eric LaRocca wrote. Unfortunately, the thing that didn't work for me is it just escalates way too quickly. I love where this goes and the things it's exploring, like the constant need to have a connection with other people when you feel so lonely, and the ways that the internet can help with that, for better or worse. I feel like if this book had been like 100 pages longer and just taken the time to slowly mount tension, I just feel like this book would have been all the better for it, because there are just a couple steps that feel like they're missing in the 3/4 section. Like, things just go from, okay, hey, they're friends, and okay, hey, they have a connection, to just like way off the deep end. It just could use a little tweaking, but I gave this 3.5 stars. I appreciate what it did and like how dark and weird it was. The next movie I chose was a movie I watched with my friend, which is a horror movie, kind of, about a killer doll. The main character uses this voodoo doll as a way to get back at those who've wronged her, until things get out of hand. If you need something that's just like so easy and stupid and you can laugh at, this is perfect. The acting in this movie is outrageously bad. This feels like it belongs on the Lifetime Network. It very well could be on the Lifetime Network. I honestly don't know. It definitely would make a lot of sense. It's just so cheesy and over the top and ridiculous. But like I said, like, it's so bad it comes back around. It's kind of fun. The fucking way the voodoo doll attacks people, so stupid. I will say, like, near the end, I actually started to enjoy it. I feel like there was some creepy scenes kind of near the end, but like, I mean, it wasn't good. And I gave Killers Under the Bed also 1.5 stars. Another book I read was Last Days by Brian Evenson. This book was about an ex-detective who gets caught up in this strange cult for a very specific reason. They believe he's connected to them because of something from his past. They decide to hire him to solve a crime that has happened within their order because, of course, they can't go to the police because of the fact that they're a cult. I was not prepared for this book. Basically, this book starts off, the main character, the guy we're following, he has gone through something with someone in his past. Like, there's been some sort of an incident, a confrontation with this other guy that caused him to lose a hand. And because of this, these two other mysterious strangers are really interested in him and want him to come out to their compound for some unknown reason, essentially. They basically end up giving him no choice in the matter, and he ends up having to go out there, and oh God, I don't know how much to say. In my opinion, I like to give the details away that would get me to pick up a book. But like, I'm just gonna put a spoiler just in case. Actually, you know what? No, this isn't a spoiler because they tell you this within the first 10 pages. And so to me, that's not a spoiler. This cult entirely revolves around amputation. They revere the idea of amputating limbs or fingers, just anything. And the more amputations you have, the higher up in this cult that you are. You know, it's all built around this idea of sacrifice because you're the one amputating these things willingly. It's just been quite a wild ride. I'm almost done it now. I'm 80% of the way through, and however weird it sounds, like, it's more weird. The style in which it's written is so bizarre and disorienting. The conversations go around in circles and like repeat themselves a lot, but I feel like it's done very effectively and purposefully to kind of put you off kilter. It's just, it's really interesting. I don't even know what to say. I will say, like, the first part I was loving. I kind of didn't love the second part as much. It just, like, it got a little action-y, and it started to feel like they were losing the pacing a little bit. I don't know. But I'm now, like, in the last part, I'm guessing, and I don't know, we'll see how it ends. It's been a wild ride, what can I say? I ended up giving this 3 stars. I'm really glad that I read it because it was so weird and different and like not at all what I was expecting, but I definitely didn't like the second half of the story that much. It turned more into like an action movie in the second half. Like, it almost felt like a John Wick thing where the main character just like cannot be killed, but he just goes on a rampage and kills all these different people just to get out of this situation or whatever. I definitely didn't find that as enjoyable as the cult aspect of things. I definitely enjoyed the more psychological, disorienting, can't figure out what's going on or why that the first half gave me. And the last movie I watched was Freaky, which was starring Vince Vaughn and is basically a horror take on Freaky Friday, where a serial killer and a teenage girl end up swapping bodies on a full moon. If she is not able to stab Vince Vaughn before midnight comes again, then she will be stuck in his body forever. This was just a lot of fun. I enjoyed it for what it was, but I will say, like, I feel like it delivered exactly what I expected it to. It didn't really exceed my expectations in any way. I will say there were a couple, like, really dark jokes that I was surprised by because, yeah, I just, like, this has a very light teenage tone, and then some of the dark jokes I was just like, whoa, okay, darker than I was expecting. But I really enjoyed it. I thought Vince Vaughn was incredible in it. Like, he just, every part of him did the teenage girl aspect so well. Like, just the way he moved, the way he talked, like, everything was so spot on, so that was incredible. It's a lot of fun, and I think a lot of people will enjoy it. I just wish it had, like, exceeded my expectations in some way and done something unexpected. The next book is Burnt Offerings by Robert Marasco. This book is about a very normal family who want to take a break from the city and decided to check out this summer house that seems like it is being offered at a price that's too good to be true, but of course some weird happenings start going on while they're there, and they start to wonder if it's really worth spending their summer at somewhere that seems to be driving them apart. Oh, so I finished Burnt Offerings on audiobook, and I'm giving it 2.5 stars. It just, like, wasn't necessarily my thing. It reminded me a lot of The Shining by Stephen King, with the evil house that's eating away at these people as well as disintegrating their marriage. If that's something that you enjoy, then you might enjoy this. It's very easy. I feel like it's light on the horror. It's more, like, sinister, but I just didn't find it all that exciting. The thing that I believe, like, The Shining had going for it at the very least was it was a really good character study, whereas I don't know if this ever really succeeds at that. Or the ending is what made me give it a 1/2 star, because otherwise it was just gonna be a 2 star, but, like, I really, really love the ending. Another book I chose to read this month was The Venue by TJ Payne. This book is about a married couple who decide to show their wedding guests who they truly are by choosing a venue in the middle of nowhere where the guests will have to fight to the death in order to get out alive. And so far, I'm digging it. I love ridiculous premises like this. Like, I don't need them to, like, explain it or, like, try and make me believe it. I can totally suspend my disbelief just for the fun of it. You know, definitely reminds me of something like Ready or Not. That, like, rich people are crazy sort of genre in and of itself. Basically, we're following, from Amy's point of view, her family and her ex-girlfriend, who she's still super close with. They're all going to this wedding with her. And, like, her and her family have this, like, super uncomfortable relationship, or I should say her and her parents. She doesn't have any siblings or anything, but, like, her mom's, like, super angry and blunt about the fact that she dumped her ex-girlfriend because she believes that, like, her daughter's gonna end up alone. The ex-girlfriend comes basically to, like, try and help the main character get along with her mom. Anyways, seems like somewhat of a fun dynamic. It's clear that, like, the groom and her used to be friends, and that's why he's inviting her, because they used to be best friends, but they lost touch. But, like, it's clear that he had feelings for her, and that, you know, she probably didn't have feelings for him back because she's gay. Like, she mentions this. And now I'm sure he wants to kill her because, God forbid, men don't get the women they quote-unquote deserve. I'm really enjoying it. It seems fun. I seem to go for, like, fun horror over other types of horror. So I'm 50% into The Venue, and I am fucking loving it. Like, I'm just so into it. It's definitely got battle royale type of a storyline where everyone just, like, has to kill each other in some way, possibly. This so far has total 5-star potential. I'm just so excited about it. Like, everything about it's great. Basically what happens is all of these people who've been invited to this wedding are people who've made the groom and bride's life hell in one way or another, and they want to punish them and show them what awful people they are by making them kill each other. Essentially, each guest has to kill someone else in order to get free, in order to leave the venue and go home. So far, there hasn't been a lot of killing because I feel like, you know, it's just ramping up. But I love the pacing. I feel like it's going really, really well in the sense that I got enough time to be introduced to the core characters and to at least know a little bit about them, but it hasn't dragged on in any way. And now we're like getting to the good stuff. The bride and groom are very interesting. The groom definitely has like incel vibes, whereas the bride's a little bit annoying because she's a little bit petulant and just like a psychopathic princess basically. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's so good so far. So much fun. This book was just super fun, and it didn't go in the way I was expecting it to. I was expecting it to get a lot more violent and grotesque, because that's kind of what I come to expect from these competition to the death type of things. This one, I feel like actually took the approach of like, hey, maybe humanity's not all terrible. Which, you know, when you watch something like The Hunger Games or Battle Royale or read them, you just get the idea that like everyone is awful. Whereas this didn't go that way, and that was surprising. I feel actually similarly to this that I feel about The Cabin in the Woods, which I love The Cabin in the Woods. It is like one of my favorite movies of all time. But every time I watch it, I always feel like, man, I want to see the prequels. Like, I want more. I want the other iterations of this. And I feel the same about this book. This was such a good premise, and I feel like there's so much to explore there, so many ways this could have gone. I want to see those other stories, those really dark ones. You know, this didn't give me exactly what I wanted, but it was really great overall. I love the way it played with different wedding conventions and turned them into these like really fucked up horror things. I loved the kind of like character arcs of the guests and of the two psychopathic bride and groom. I do think that there are certain things that didn't quite hit right to me. The incel type character that the groom is, I feel like when he finally realized this miscommunication that had happened with the main character, I feel like he reacted in a way that didn't totally work for me, because I understand why it was done, but I just don't think it rang true. I do like what this had to say about like the narratives we build in our mind around people, the way that they're not even acting, but we see the way they're acting and then we read it as something else. So we try to explain it away in our brain, for better or for worse. So yeah, I really enjoyed that one. I'll definitely read more from this author. And then the last book I read for this advent calendar, I clearly did not complete all 31 things, but still, I read and watched so much. Regardless, the last thing I read was The Croning by Laird. I finished this like right near the end, and I hated this. Like, I hated this so much. I started off loving this. This is about a married couple and the fact that he doesn't trust his wife because something fucked up might be going on with her. I don't know how else to explain what this is about, honestly. This book started off really interesting. It starts off with the couple going on this romantic getaway together when she ends up going off on this archaeological dig or something because a colleague calls her, and he ends up kind of getting kidnapped, sort of just going along with it. It's all very bizarre, but essentially he ends up in a very precarious situation where he almost dies. It was all pretty exciting. I was enticed to see where this book was gonna go. Unfortunately, where it went after that is kind of nowhere. We go back to the main couple's day-to-day lives. The book isn't exactly linear. It kind of goes back and forth between their day-to-day life now and a couple memories from their past. But I couldn't tell you which is which or what any of it mattered because like it was so boring. It was just them being normal people and not doing a whole lot. He kind of sat around and thought about whether or not everything in their life was normal, and that was it. Then the ending came, and the ending was very cosmic horror and just like a lot interesting stuff happened. I bet I would have loved it had anything happened throughout the rest of the book. But I was so mind-numbingly bored by then that like I just wanted it to be over. Like I did not care at all. I should have DNF'd this book. I don't know why I didn't. It was because of this advent calendar, I guess. I already DNF'd one book at the beginning of this whole advent calendar, and so like I didn't want to DNF a book after that. So I didn't. And it was terrible. I would give this 2 stars. You know, maybe a little bit at the beginning, a little bit at the end were okay, but I would never recommend reading this. Like, just don't do it. No. So that's all the things I completed for my advent calendar. This video is kind of a mess. I apologize. Hopefully you found something that you might want to read or watch regardless. I actually really liked most of the things I read this month. It made me realize just how much I'm missing by not reading more in the horror genre, because even a bad horror book is more enjoyable to me than most other things I read. Other than the Croning, that shit was terrible. I definitely feel more likely to pick up horror books in the future, that's for sure. Now, horror movies, on the other hand, have been disappointing me left and right, but that's a topic for another day. I hope you liked this video, and I hope you'll come back in soon. Bye.